And I was hearing, hi, Belle. I was there and I was hearing, Belle's here now, the people yelling us to move forward. I was hearing people yell, go over the wall. These were not like people that were just all around and like 1 minute they're talking about, yeah, I really like Trump and I think we should go over the wall, or yeah, why don't we move up a little bit? These are orders coming from people who I have no idea who they are, but all I know is all I see around me are Trump people. Got it? That's what the environment was like. That's not to excuse the people who went into the building. As I said, we now know a lot of people got into that building before Trump was even finished speaking. While I was still at the Ellipse, there were some of these characters were going into the Capitol building. That's like, I think it's like over a mile away. You know the guy, the idiot guy with the horns and all that, he's a professional. He's not even so much a professional agitator. He's a professional agitator slash blogger, vlogger. This is what this guy does in his life. He dresses up in that absurd outfit with the horns and the fur vest and all that. And he goes to Trump things like he did. And he goes to, he's been spotted a BLM thing, I think it was. He likes to get himself photographed, videoed in these different scenarios, demonstrations, and then he blogs and vlogs about them, and that's part of his whole shtick he's got going for being a vlogger and a blogger. For all I know, it's his source of income. I don't know. It's very, not all is as it seems. And boy, did I learn that. Boy, did I learn that. I will never forget that time at either the Ellipse or even going up Constitution Avenue. That's right, that's another thing that happened. When we were walking up Constitution Avenue, just this huge crowd of people just walking along, people are talking about this and that. And all of a sudden, I guess Pence had said that he was going to accept the electoral vote that gave Biden the win. And this guy must have been on cell phone, because all of a sudden this guy over to my right starts yelling, Pence sold us out! Pence sold us out! He's a traitor! He's a traitor! And I heard a couple of people go, hey, Pence sold us out. So it was kind of like people were getting a little revved up, but not, I mean, I heard it and I was kind of like, oh, well, I guess Pence didn't get the telegram. You're supposed to not, accept the electoral vote. Those kind of things going on, I'm not sure that was anything. I think that was just a Trump supporter who was upset by what they heard on their phone when they were walking along. That's the kind of stuff, though, that was going on. But when you hear what this guy has to say, I think you're going to be very, very, well, let's just put it this way. I'll speak for myself. When I watched this interview, I was very, very surprised. I'll try not to talk too much. Bill, please get out of the way. You want to say hi to everybody? Here, watch this. She'll get mad. God, oh, my God. Hard to believe she's lived here like 6 years, right? Oh, Belle. God, what? And now she's totally fine. I put her down. She's like, no problems. No problems at all. I don't know. Cats are a trip. What, honey? So you don't want to be held up, but now you're going to come back and start nudging me again? They're so ridiculous. Okay. We're going to watch Michael Yon now. This is Michael Yon, reporter, man who has spent years being embedded with our troops in Iraq, a man who is embedded with Antifa, the organization that does not exist, even though he has literally had dinner with them. He'll talk about that if we watch that part of it. He's embedded with them. He's seen them being trained. But they don't actually exist. They're just an idea. They're just kind of floating around. It's just an idea. God, how ignorant. How freaking gullible and naive some people in this world are. And they always seem to be on the left. I mean, if you want to say people are gullible because they think, Trump's the second coming, yeah, that's a kind of naivety and gullibility, although I'm not sure anyone really says that. The stuff that the left does, though, is it's like they ignore corruption. They ignore the bad things. They ignore the bad things that are going on in this country. And if you accuse them of being ignorant or naive or stupid, as we all know, they just say you're racist or you're wrong or you can't prove it. You know, like this other lady, I said, we had over 2,000 affidavits. Before we get into Michael Yon, I got to tell you this thing about this engagement. Well, I don't know why it's always women. It does seem to be often women, but it's men too. But anyway, this woman got into it with me because I said somewhere, I was making the point online about the corruption and how bad it is. And I said, this woman said, and I said, you know, the fraudulent vote. And this woman responds, there was no fraud. And I said, of course there was fraud. And she goes, well, what evidence do you have? And I said, well, there's all sorts of evidence. But I said, for starters, we had over 2,000 affidavits from people, sworn testimony, sworn affidavits that they witnessed voter fraud. And I said, you know, that's a pretty big deal when you swear under oath about something, because they can, if they can prove you're lying, they can, you know, throw you in jail or something. She writes back, that evidence wasn't valid. I said, why in the world would you say, how can you say the evidence isn't valid? I mean, the evidence is the evidence. Affidavits are evidence in any court of law. If someone writes in an affidavit, I saw Joe Smith rob the bank, that's evidence. And that has gotten people put in jail. People writing, swearing in affidavits, you know. It's just like being deposed in court and saying, you're a witness. So I was like, why in the world would you say that 2,000 affidavits would not be evidence? And she goes, because nothing was done about it. If it had been evidence that was worth anything, a judge would have seen it and done something about it. And I said, well, I said, you're not arguing against the fact that the affidavits existed. You're confirming my point that the affidavits did exist and a judge did nothing about it, or judges. And that, I said, you just made my whole point. Doesn't that strike you as odd or corrupt or whatever? And she never responded. Folks, I hate to break it to you, but there is corruption in this world. I was watching something recently where a mafia hitman was being interviewed on Valuetainment. You ever seen this show? Oh my God, what a great show. They interview all of these people from all walks of life. And I mean, they really get into some really shady characters. And this guy was talking about when he was in the mafia, someone had gotten off some crime. So the host, I forget his name, he goes, well, how did they get away with it? And he goes, oh, you know, federal judge, we turn him. Yeah, I paid him off. And the guy goes, the host goes, you were able to bribe a judge, you know, to get someone from having to go to jail and get convicted? And he goes, oh yeah. He said, I think it was around 400,000. And the guy goes, man, 400,000, that's big money. And he goes, not for a federal judge, that's kind of low. He didn't say, you know, he wasn't even quibbling about the judge was being bribed. He was just saying, well, in this particular case, they kind of got away with a good deal. Folks, we live in a corrupt society. The people running this country, the Democrats, some Republicans, are taking bribes, are taking money. They're living these imperial lives. They have passed all these laws over the years, giving people in Congress perks, all these things that none of the rest of us have. It's another video in itself. I got to get to Michael Yon, okay? I tend to get distracted. So anyway, picture this. I'm at the Capitol building. People are, in fact, yelling all these things that I don't really understand. Move up, go over the wall, this and that, go this way, go in the building, you know? All of which I basically ignored because I just was not part of my game plan. So let's get to this guy, Michael Yon. This guy is a trip in the best sense of the word. I'm going to watch it with you. and I'll try to keep my talking to a minimum, although obviously when he says things I understand or I can, relate to, I'm going to say something. Michael Yon on Epoch Times. Being interviewed.
Wednesday, the big events happened at the Capitol building with Antifa leading the way and using agent provocateurs to basically guide Trump supporters into the Capitol building. Those are APs. Go over the wall. They had set up the bike rack barriers that they had taken down and used those for ladders, right? And so you had people, APs, helping people get over the wall, right? So I stopped, got video of their faces, photographed them, clear AP work. Come this way, go up, come on, there's still room, you can get in. Come on, you need to come up, this is your job, this is your chance. Stand up for your country. Waving huge Trump flags, got the rebel flags.
When I saw a couple of rebel flags at the rally, I was not happy. I did not like that. I didn't like seeing them at the Trump rally. And for all I know, they weren't even Trump supporters that were carrying them. Maybe they were people that were anti-Trump. But you wouldn't know it because they looked like Trump people.
False flag. That's why they call it false flag. Meanwhile, you've got Trump supporters going, no, there's Antifa here. Antifa start attacking the police. They're like, that's not us. That's Antifa. You can see it on many videos.
I forgot to mention that. I did hear on one occasion a guy very loudly near me, similar to the guy who was yelling, F the Proud Boy, keeping in mind F was not what he was saying. He was saying the word, F the Proud Boys. This guy was yelling, Antifa's here, Antifa's here. And again, I'm kind of going, what? Where? I'm looking around thinking, this guy's, I don't know. It was confusion at the Capitol building for me. Not terribly confusing. It was just kind of going in one ear and out the other. But now to look at what was really going on, it really blows my mind what I was going through when it happened.
Epoch Times, we have many videos showing Trump supporters stopping actions like that, stopping destruction, and very clearly saying many, many times, we don't do that, don't break those things, so on.
Right. Yeah, the Trump supporters were trying to intervene. You can see when the initial attacks were going on, Trump supporters trying to pull them back. And then back from the front line on some of my other video, I haven't even looked at my own video yet, but people right in front of me talking, saying, I don't agree with this is wrong, we shouldn't be here. There's Antifa all around us. You hear Trump supporters jumping up many times going, there's Antifa here. They're doing this. Antifa are making us look bad. Be careful. They're going to attack us. There's Antifa all over the place. They're dressed just like us. We don't know who they are. But on the tactical level, out there in front of the Capitol, that was the tactical CNN, you might say, was Antifa that day. Leading them right into the action, breaking down doors. You can hear clearly Trump supporters saying, don't break anything, show respect. There must be thousands of videos, so I obviously can't go through them all. But you can clearly see many Trump supporters saying, don't break anything, don't steal anything, that sort of thing. And there you go. I did not go inside the building. I was outside the building watching the activities out there. We saw a lot of agent provocateur activity with Antifa using Hong Kong tactics, wearing the same sorts of masks that they wore in Hong Kong. As you know, I was in Hong Kong for approximately 7 months until they finally kicked me out. So I was in about 100 protests, and 100 of the big protests and many of the small ones. So I'm very familiar with their tactics, very familiar with their procedures and how they operate. And we know that Antifa was actually in Hong Kong learning their tactics, the goggles and the same sorts of 3M masks and that sort of thing. Because this requires the kind of analysis that only Epoch is doing at this time, you in particular, because there's probably thousands of videos to digest. But what we've seen so far, and being physically present, Antifa clearly led the attack. That was utterly obvious. For instance, outside during a part of the attack, when there was much gas fired and I believe rubber bullets, I'm not sure about that. They were throwing flashbangs, that's clear, we were right there. There was a lady on a megaphone saying, send up the mask, send up the masks. She said it over and over. It's on our video and others. That's a clear Hong Kong tactic that I've never seen in any other war and conflict, which is Hong Kongers would constantly say, send up water, send up masks, send up shields. We saw shields. That's what they used in Hong Kong. That's what Antifa is constantly using. You see, they show up with their homemade shields often, or shields that they've stolen. And so, yeah, there was Antifa written all over this. What we saw there at the Capitol was right out of the handbook. It was the playbook. And in other words, show up wearing your enemy's clothing, waving their flags, and do things while, basically false flags. That's why they call them false flags. They're bringing and waving the enemy flag, which is Trump supporters' flag. They're waving Trump flags and doing violence. Now, keep in mind, there's different elements of Antifa. There's that element that would occupy the Red House. That's not your A team. What we saw in the Capitol building is your A team. That's like your Special Forces Antifa. Those are the guys that come out for special actions. So that's your 1% of Antifa. On the pie chart that I've shown you before, that I drew out for you on paper, that's your tiny sliver. That's your Special Forces of Antifa. That's what we saw in the Capitol building. They know exactly what they're doing. They're well trained. They're well organized. They show up with the gear that they need. They've got the statements ready to say, she's dead, that sort of thing. They come out. They make great statements for the camera, sound bites. These guys are professionals. They come in and they harness the energy of a pre-existing movement or protest. So what, in this case, let's say Trump supporters. I believe actual Trump supporters had a real rally. Trump called it himself. So he gave the speech at the Ellipse in the morning. So they basically hijack your horse, right? So they come in and in this case, after the speech at the Ellipse, you had to walk, pretty far over to the Capitol. So people were left the Ellipse to go to the next rally of course, went to the Ellipse to hear President Trump speak, right? The next rally was at the Capitol building. So as Trump supporters started to go to the Capitol building, where we went next, that's when I started seeing APs that were like, this way, keep coming forward. ACAB is all cops are bastards. So when you see ACAB, ACAB, written, usually it's magic marker or painted, that's a clear Antifa sign. It couldn't be any clearer. Trump supporters never come up with ACAB. For instance, you never see Trump supporters with shields. And Antifa constantly uses shields. Hong Kongers, of course, use a lot of shields because they were getting hit with rubber bullets.
Now, another thing we saw is individuals changing their clothes on the scene. I understand this is also something, it's very odd behavior. It's something also we've seen with some Antifa members. If you can tell us why they do that, and some of the incidents we saw during the protests on January 6th where people were doing this as well.
Right. They're just harder to track when they change clothes, right? They can egress and ingress as well. They can go to the action in one set of clothes, do their Superman change, and then egress after they change clothes. I didn't go inside the Capitol building. I saw it on other people's video, right? So that's a common Hong Kong tactic, to bring change of clothes in your backpack, or to wear two clothes to begin with and just take one off, right? Now, one thing to always watch for with change of clothes, this is basic spy craft 101, is they rarely change shoes, right? So the shoes will tend to be the same. You don't usually bring two pairs of shoes. You've got a group there. You can harness their energy and use it to your ends. Come this way, everybody, just wearing their, waving their flag. This is where it's at. Come over here. Go to here, we're going into this door, right? It's too easy. And once people get riled up, they'll do it, because we're humans, and we will go with the herd and right through that door. I am the most experienced living American combat correspondent. I've been doing this for years in many countries. As you know, Hong Kong, that's where we first met. And so war is what I do, not elections, right? And I know what I'm doing when it comes to war. And I see the United States is now clearly going into civil war. It's unambiguous at this point. And so what we saw there, Antifa is helping to rile this up. CCP is neck deep in this. And so we are facing an information war of unprecedented scope. I've written 3 books on it. Unfortunately, they're all in Japanese, because I've been working to try to wake the Japanese up to this. They're also a target. The Japanese are facing the same information war, but in Japanese language, trying to rewrite textbooks for schools, taking hold of teacher unions. Every technique and tactic that you see being used here is being used in Japan, right? And it's being used to split Korea and Japan. It's being used in Korea as well. As you know, I've spent years in Asia, rolling around studying this thing, so it's coming for us now. We have to make a united face to face the enemy. The enemy is CCP and some others who are organic to the
CCP
United
is
States.
the new Nazi party, and they will do anything to destroy the economic system in Hong Kong, which is incredible considering how valuable it is as an economic power, but they are scared of the power part of that equation. Antifa in Japan. Why? Japan is the closest, biggest rival to China in the East. Simple. Japan is a huge economic powerhouse. They consider China an enemy. China considers them an enemy. Do you see a pattern here? Antifa's there too. Antifa is there to disrupt and create unrest in countries around the world that have a problem with CCP. A lot of it's funded by George Soros. People who are against our country and other countries around the world have Antifa in them. Fully funded, real, not just an idea. They're real. The United States is now going into civil war. It's unambiguous. If you don't want to believe this is true and it's not happening, fine. If you don't want to believe that your president now, Joe Biden, is a figurehead, an empty shell, a man with early dementia signs of early dementia, perhaps later stages, although they say they basically rest him up, give him some Adderall, send him out. He does his thing, they bring him back in. We're not going to see a lot of Joe Biden for the next 4 years. We're going to probably see a lot of Kamala Harris and a lot of his spokesman. Some of those people are more in charge of what's going on than Joe Biden, and they're all answering to bigger forces. I know. Some of you are saying, Eric, you sound like you're living in a Tom Clancy novel. Folks, we're living in a Tom Clancy novel. You have to wake up to what's going on. It's very serious. And this guy, Michael Yon's incredible. I mean, it's really interesting to go through something and have someone explain what you went through and kind of fill in the weirdness that you didn't understand. It's pretty freaking heavy, folks, isn't it? He pretty much calls the shots on what happened at the Capitol. He knows better than I do, and I was there, but he was there too. So it is what it is. It's a serious situation we're in. The people running this country are pawns in a much bigger game. And Joe Biden's just a shill for these forces, and he's a shell of a man, and he's not the elected president. I'll say it till the day I die. He was not elected president legally, I guess you'd say. He was fraud. Everyone have a good day. It's Inauguration Day. The Democrats are in power. We have a party of corruption running our country now. And have fun. And see you next time. Oh, this is important. The next video, I promise, is going to be about Forrest Fenn. I came across a huge rumor, totally a rumor, alleged speculation with some pretty interesting key points, data points, specific points about how Jack Stoof may have found the treasure. You're not going to want to miss it, and you're not going to really be happy with what you hear. But again, I cannot find the actual information. You know, there's no smoking gun, but it's a very specific rumor that I think people will be interested in hearing about. I thought it was interesting enough to do a video on, so that'll be, should be the next video. I know I have a tendency to say I'm going to do things, and then they end up sometimes the video after that or something. We'll see what happens. Everybody have a good time and have a good night, and here's hoping to a good future. Bye.